there's this notion that Asian food should be affordable or should be cheap, you know?
Let's talk about that.
And that really gets me because, sometimes people will come here and they're like, oh, it's expensive. It's kind of expensive. Actually, in Korea, there's a saying where you fight fire with fire. So Korean people will, on the hottest day of the year, on the hottest days of the year, you actually eat chicken soup and it's hot. And they say, and there's like ginseng in it. So very like warm foods. Yeah. And they say you have to fight the heat with more heat.
And are the Korean people like that too?
A little bit, I think.
Right? Why, hello there, food lovers, and welcome to The Hungry Immigrant. I'm your host, Abang Brian, a chef, food researcher, reality TV star, and a guy who believes that every dish tells a story. This is where we uncover the stories behind the flavors, the people shaping our culinary world, and the dishes that bring us all together. From hidden street stalls to Michelin-starred kitchens, we dive into tastes, traditions, and untold stories of food across borders. So grab a seat, bring your appetite, and let's feast on culture, one bite at a time. In this episode, we're in Annandale, Virginia, smack in the heart of Korean-American flavor town. I'm sitting down with Serene, a second-gen Korean-American who's now running not one, but multiple family-run Korean eateries, including the spicy powerhouse Sorimmara. We get real about growing up with kimchi lunches, the double-edged sword of Korean jong, and what it's like balancing modern identity with traditional roots. Plus, Serene and I taste test sambals from Malaysia, Indonesia, and China, and dive into what makes Korean soups so soul-warming and literally boiling hot. What do I mean by boiling hot? Grab a snack, maybe some rice and banchan, and settle in because this is one flavorful journey into heritage, hustle, and heat. I think you might be the first Korean American representation for the show.
Oh, okay.
So this is really exciting. For the audience, just paint you a picture where I am now. If you're not watching it on Spotify or on YouTube, I'm surrounded by a very vibrant environment, and there's a big, huge fiery panda next to me. And yeah, as soon as you walk through the doors, it's something that you feel like, oh, it's a very exciting place and it makes you really hungry. And I'm actually with Serene. So Serene is second generation, third generation?
Second, yeah.
Second generation Korean American. She comes from a family that runs restaurants. Now she's also running one of the restaurants under the family umbrella, right?
Like you said, I'm part of the family business. The thing when you're working with family, though, is you don't have one job title. You have about 25. So I do a little bit of everything. I do marketing, social media, running daily operations, menu development, the whole thing. It's just where my dad says, hey, you need to do this, I do it.
Has this always been the thing that you wanted to do with your life, or?
No. And actually, growing up with it, I was kind of really adamantly against it. Before we opened Sorimmara, this one, my parents are still running a more traditional Korean place that does like banchan, which is side dishes, and rice cakes and that kind of thing. And they've been running that since, oh man, like I was in middle school. So it was a long time. And I always told them, I don't want it. I was like, don't even think about like handing it down to me. I don't want it. I don't want to do it. You can, I have a younger brother. I was like, you can give it to him. He can do it. And I was like, I'm going to go do my own thing, which I did do for a while. I tried a couple different things. I flew off to New York after I graduated college. I was like, I'm going to live out my dreams. Right. Did some internships, learned about like social media marketing and stuff there, which, came around to help me now, but I didn't know at the time. My degree is in biology, so I went back to that. Yeah. And I started working in a hospital, and I did that for a couple years. I loved it. I mean, I liked it there and I liked my job, but there just was a turning point, I think, where I was like, okay, well, I feel like this opportunity to kind of like go into the family business to kind of work with my dad is kind of like a now thing. I felt like I had to grab that opportunity. Whereas, I can always go back to school, always go back to working in healthcare. I felt like it would always be there. Whereas like now with the business growing, I felt the opportunity was now, and I had to have it. So I ended up coming back.
Right. And let's go back to that. The Korean restaurant that your parents were running, it's called
Shiru.
Shiru. Growing up, you were very adamant not wanting that business. Where did that come from? So, like, when David Chang talks about his childhood and Korean food in America, he had this shame of the stinkiness and the fermentation that we love in Asian culture. Was that something
I
that
think even in my lifetime, it has been such a big change. I mean, when I was in school and my mom would like pack me lunches and stuff, there was kind of like and actually one of a really distinct memory I have is, Yakult, right?
okay, yeah.
My parents packed me one, and now it's so, like so popular. It's mainstream. I think sometimes you can even find it in American grocery stores now. But when I packed it back in elementary school, the kids made fun of me. They were like, "What is that? Oh, like look at that little bottle. It's like a baby bottle. Why are you bringing that?" And it's just so it's just crazy to me how much of a change we've seen even in that short period of time. But I think not wanting to go into the family was less of that. And I might get in trouble for saying this, but sometimes dealing with Korean people is very difficult. Oh man, there's a lot of stress that comes from that.
And the Korean people that you are referring to is like the people that you serve, or like
yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And I understand it's hard. They've come from a different country. They're in a foreign place, and they just feel more comfortable when they come to a place where people speak Korean and things are in Korean, so they just kind of like let loose a little bit. But if you're on the receiving end of it day in day out, it does kind of build up a little bit.
Yeah, and I think I also briefly work with Koreans because back in Malaysia, I used to do home shopping with the CJ group. Yeah, so CJ is a big, huge group in Korea, and I think everyone from Korea will know CJ, right? From sauces to entertainment, CJ E&M, I think, to movies, everything, right? So I did have chance to work with Koreans, and what I must say about Koreans is that they are very willful in getting their point across. And my ex-boss who's watching, Mr. Giwon, Mr. Giwon Ko, you know who I'm talking about. But yeah, I think it can be overwhelming. And sometimes if you're not ready for it, it can be a lot.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's kind of a double-edged sword. So in Korean, there's this notion of we call it chong, right? And it's kind of just like, if you put it a good way, it's like, oh, everyone's familiar. Like you'll meet like older Korean people and they'll treat you like they know you, and like they'll be interested, they'll be involved. But on the other end, it's kind of like, I don't know you. Like we need to draw some boundaries. So I think it's kind of a double-edged sword in that sense. Yeah.
I think it's a cultural thing that I think you need to live surrounded by a lot of Koreans to understand, because one of my favorite books, which made me cry a lot and laugh a lot, and it's motivational and it has accounting. It's actually written by a good friend of ours, our family friend. His name is James Ree. He's Korean American, and the book is called Red Helicopter. He talks about all the stories growing up around the shame of having smelly Korean food, bringing it to school. He talks about Chung, and he talks about so many things that I think in general Asians are like, we're very warm, but there's also some sort of like level of respect that comes with the distance. It's not that we're cold. It's just, I think it's respect. I don't know what it is, but like the way he describes everything, it's like, oh my God, like it makes so much sense. We call it a different thing, but like even Chung is like, it's very hard to describe it. There's no English word that actually matches that Chung. Talking about, it's like this state of emotion, I think, that is like familial, but at the same time, there is respect, there is, I don't know, it's a notion that is not our focus of the show, which was supposed to be talking about the food, but let's go back to food. I am very proud of my sambal. Anyone watching the show knows what sambal is. It's a condiment that we use in Malaysia. We eat it with everything, right? I thought that since now I'm in America, we have so many different types of sambal. Why not we taste different sambals along the show instead of waiting to the end? So, have you had Malaysian sambal?
I don't think so.
Okay, so let's try Malaysian sambal, and it's right in front of me. I just made it yesterday.
Oh, okay.
So one of the things we like to have it with is nasi lemak, which is coconut rice. And this sambal is on the side. And so I want you to taste it since you have not tasted it. And for a person who is Korean by heritage and living in America and been to New York and all around the world, I want you to tell me what you think of it.
Okay.
And I did the very Asian thing. I kept it in a bottle of, well, I had
You reuse the bottle.
I reused the kimchi bottle. But inside it's my sambal.
Okay.
So let's just stick that cracker there. I'm gonna just put it out here and then you can help yourself.
Just like dip it.
Just dip
Okay.
it.
It's good. Ooh. And there's like a little heat that comes.
It's a bag.
Yeah, like at the end. You don't think it's spicy at first? It's actually kind of like sweet at first.
So sambal with the chili that we use, I feel that there's a lot of layers, and the way you cook the sambal and how it tastes, it reflects the people of the country. We're very sweet, but we'll get you behind. Like we'll surprise you. But like no, yeah, there are different types of sambal, but this is one that it's called sambal tumis. We saute it. There's onions, garlic.
Yeah, I can really like the onions. Really make it like so nice and sweet. It's like almost like jammy kind of, and then but it's like so balanced with the heat like that comes through.
Does it remind you of something that you've had?
I don't know if it like reminds me of anything specifically, but like the flavors themselves are not completely foreign. You know what I mean?
It's like to a certain extent also I use a little bit of dried shrimp paste,
Mm,
which the Koreans like.
yeah.
Dried shrimps.
Yeah.
Even like when we make what's it called, kimchi for that porridge.
Yeah.
We put a little bit of that fermented prawns, right?
Yeah,
So I think
the it's like the shrimp sauce. Yeah.
shrimp. So I brought a few more sambals as well. So mine is a Malaysian sambal, and I found this in H Mart actually. It's called sambal oelek, and sambal oelek is more Indonesian per
Okay.
se. And then I have Chinese roots, but I don't read Chinese. All right.
Okay.
I found it's like it's not even open yet. It's everything is in Chinese. It says premium spicy sauce.
Ooh.
So we have a Chinese
Yeah.
product, we have an Indonesian and a Malaysian product.
Okay.
I'm gonna eat it along the ways. But we forgot to talk about Sorimmara, which we are at. This is something very interesting for me because Sorimmara is malat. Mala.
Yes.
So mala in Chinese means numbing, spicy, right? And this is not Korean. Is it Korean?
So it's Chinese food. It's Chinese in origin, but the brand is Korean, and they kind of describe it as, oh, it's Korean style mala. Korean food doesn't really have a lot of like herbs and spices, I think, compared to other Asian foods. Like we don't use a lot of like cilantro, basil, mint, that kind of thing, or like cumin or like star anise. It's not as like in terms of like aromatic spices, we don't use as much. They kind of took original mala and kind of like toned it down a little bit in terms of that to make it a little more approachable for Korean people, and then brought it to Korea and it became huge. I mean, not just Sorimmara, I think they have other mala brands in Korea, but it still kind of is a huge food trend there. And I think from what they told me, Sorimmara, the brand, has like 200 locations in Korea.
So it's an international franchise.
Yeah. And then and that's just that brand, and I know there's other brands, but it became so huge in Korea that they started like making like everything mala flavored, like mala chips, mala dumplings, mala everything. And then they kind of incorporated other things, like now we have like tteokbokki, which is Korean, but we add mala sauce to it, or like the black mala shangwo, which is like jjajangmyeon, like it's like the jjajang sauce, but then you add mala, or like rosé, which is a very Korean thing to add like cream to the spicy. So they took it and kind of like made it so that it was more geared towards Koreans, I think.
Right. Because actually the original mala, if I'm not mistaken, it even has like you're talking about herbs, but like the spices is like star anise, and you had cloves, and you had I remember having this hot pot kind of thing that is mala flavor. And hot pot is basically, if you don't know what hot pot is, it's like broth in front of you, and you put like different proteins or whatever you want, and you cook it in front of you, and then you eat it, right? And you can drink the broth. So they give you a piece of white bread because you're supposed to like dip this piece of chicken or whatever you want into that mala broth, which has a layer of oil, and then take it out and dap it on that white bread before you
Get rid of
eat
the
it.
oil.
Because the oil, it's like a layer of it,
Yeah.
but like it's also because it's not just oily. It's not just not oil, it's also chili oil. So it gives the spice. So,
Right.
but I don't know. To me, when it's too oily,
Yeah.
and I always tell people like, guys, you know what? I'm gonna sound really gross, but like, I'll see you in the toilet tomorrow. Like mama has a way to like remind you, hey, you had mala.
For sure. Especially if you start like kicking up the spice. Yeah.
And you guys here actually am able to control the spice level.
Yes.
Right? But let's go back to your childhood growing up.
They came over pretty young. Like my mom was in high school, my dad was still in his 20s, and they met here. So they started their family here. They weren't always in the food business. But almost as long as I can remember, they always ran some kind of business. I do remember my mom when I was really, really little, like going to an office job. But after that, it's always been business. So they did have a food business at first. They had a deli, like an American style deli.
Okay.
And then after that, they ran some other non-food businesses. And then the first food business that they came back to was Shiru. And back then, it wasn't food really. It was just concentrated on Korean traditional rice cakes, tteok. So it was a small place. There was no food. It was just rice cakes. And then from there, they started expanding and then opened other ones and stuff.
You're the eldest child. Growing up in a household that ran that business, what were your best and worst memories?
Best memories, I would say we always had good food. Worst memories, I think, running a business is very time consuming. And my parents were always working, like when I was younger, I think. And so just a lot of kind of like, like my mom wasn't able to chaperone my school trips or something like that,
Right.
And then just nature of like food business is holidays or working days. You don't get to rest on the holidays. And when we were younger, I mean, this still happens, but on the big kind of major holidays, it was, you got to work. You don't get to stay at home. And so my brother and I, my brother and I would come out and help out and all that stuff. Sometimes on my birthday too. My birthday always falls near Chuseok, which is a very, very big Korean holiday.
Yeah.
One of the things that's traditionally eaten during Chuseok is a type of rice cake. So it's always crazy. Probably it's probably the biggest holiday for us at Shiru. And so always near my birthday.
I mean, because we're talking to the whole wide world, and the point of this podcast is to share our culture with the world, and we don't want to assume that people know what Chuseok is, right?
I think we always kind of say like, it's Korean Thanksgiving is how we always describe it. But I think other cultures do celebrate it too, but it's like the harvest moon, I think.
Right.
And, other cultures, they do like moon cakes and stuff like that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think where it comes from is related to harvest and just like, because it's in the fall. So it's, giving, thanks for the harvest and all the stuff that they were able to get from the farms and stuff. So it is a big Korean holiday. You kind of like get together with family and, eat food. I mean, with Korean people, it's always with food. And there's this rice cake that you eat. It's called songpyeon. And inside there's either like sesame seeds or like black beans or mung bean paste. And when I was younger and I was in
Was it soft? It's like very...
it's like chewy a little bit. And then with the filling, Korean rice cakes are steamed. So then it's just like, like made into a rice flour and then the dough and then filled and then steamed.
I think it's almost like the mooncake, just with a different coat. Like the outside of a mooncake, well, now you have we call it a snow skin mooncake. So it's that soft thing, and then like the inside, it can be lotus paste, can be green bean paste, green bean or red beans. We call mung
Yeah.
beans, right?
Mhm.
And then now they have like so many variations. I think in Malaysia we love durian. They even have durian mooncakes now. But like this brings me to the question of like, do you see a lot of Korean traditions like the rice cake now, or for example with everything that's going mala now? Is that destroying who we are? Is that destroying our culture?
Well, it's hard to say. Well, I feel like with Korean people, I even in Korea, I think there's just so I always say Korean people are so serious about food. And they're always coming up with something new, something, that's a different mix. And so I feel like Korean people, as a general population, aren't really adverse to new combinations or, kind of like new fusions and stuff like that. Um, but I'm sure there is, a lot of tradition being lost. There's probably a lot of traditional foods that are probably hard to find now and, or you can't eat or it's hard to eat. Um, so it's hard to say if it's like, I guess it's just building a new culture, right? I guess for me, growing up here, it's it's even harder to see what kinds of things we're losing because I didn't really spend any extended period of time in Korea to know like, oh, I see like certain things disappearing and stuff like that. But what we do notice is that there are fewer and fewer people who are kind of upholding the traditions. I mean, going back to Chuseok, being like a really big holiday, it's still a really busy time and still a really big holiday for us. But I do think we see a trend of people are less and less aware of it. Like they'll come into the store not knowing and they'll be like, oh, is it today? Oh, I didn't know, that kind of thing. They're not necessarily sticking to the traditional foods for the holiday.
Right.
So yeah, it is kind of in a way sad to see people kind of like losing that tradition.
Yeah, but let's talk about tradition and Korean food in general, right? In America, for you, you grew up here, right? Your whole life. What is the general public understanding of what Korean food is? And is that aligned with what you feel is authentically Korean?
Korean barbecue. It's insane how many Korean barbecue spots are opening up in this area alone. And I would say kimchi. Korean barbecue, kimchi is probably like what people think of the most when they think of Korean food. And it's great. I mean, especially kimchi. Kimchi is very, integral to our culture and to our identity for sure. I would say it's great that, like Korean barbecue has become so popular and, we're a lot of people have found Korean food that way, but it is a little disappointing when every single new Korean restaurant that's opening is a Korean barbecue place, especially as a Korean, because I'm like, I want other food.
Right.
I want to be able to eat other Korean foods. And I know there's so many good Korean foods.
I also want to invite people whenever you hear about something on the show that you don't know about or you want to know more of. I invite you to just really go Google it, read more about it, because like when we talk about kimchi, girl, kimchi is not just kimchi. There's white kimchi, there's red kimchi, there's wetter kimchi, there's drier kimchi. There is, so many types of kimchi.
Cucumber, cabbage,
So it's not just the kimchi that you think about, and like kimchi is eaten in different ways. And I think Koreans are always so elaborate and prepared. I try to experience people's culture through their food. So like when I see Koreans and how they have a lot of different side dishes when they eat one thing. Sometimes I go to a Korean restaurant and I go like, girl, if I don't want to spend too much money, I'll just order the cheapest thing and eat all the side dishes and I'll be really full, right? But the point of me talking about these side dishes is the thing with the Koreans that you always have something prepared. And working with the Koreans, I experienced that. You are always prepared. Big Bang, all these people who are dancing on the stage, the dance move are choreographed 6 months in ahead, at least, right? So like, I think that's really reflected in the food that you guys have. And like when you watch Korean movies and how all the ajumas always make sure that you bring back like a container of food, and always in your food there's always like containers of side dishes. You're always prepared, right? And also that tells the story of the Korean people.
I believe also the Korean food, like a lot of Asian cultures come from a time of lack. We didn't have much.
Right.
That's why we fermented stuff.
Yeah.
We found ingenious ways to preserve food, right? Because we didn't have the fridge. We couldn't afford like a lot of proteins. That's why we resorted to roots. And so like things like that actually tells a lot about the people. And I think it's always very touching to talk about food because you learn so much about people. Right. And even Yakult, actually Yakult is a brand.
Right.
And we have it in Malaysia as well. And it's actually really good for you. It's a prebiotic drink that I think a lot of kids just drink it because it's flavored sweet, right? But actually it's really good for you. We find out later on as we grow up that it's really good for you. And if anything, I think the Koreans are very good. They're the kings and queens of fermentation, I believe. Yeah. So what are the other foods that you feel that America needs from Korea?
I actually, while you were talking, what I was reminded of was army stew. Have you had army stew? Budae Jjigae?
Army stew?
So it actually is a very popular Korean food, but the actual background of it is during the Korean War, they took American army rations like Spam and baked beans and sausages to make a stew. Well, because Korean people always need soup. With every meal, there always needs to be soup. So they said, oh, we don't have meat right now. There's nothing. So they took kimchi and other seasonings and put in Spam and baked beans and like sausage and made a soup out of it.
So there's like a Korean version of English breakfast.
Yeah, I know. And that's how it started. But then, you know, now it's very like common in Korea. I mean, it's like a very loved food. And I think it's interesting because a lot of American people will look down on Spam. But it's delicious, right?
I'm not going to take away from the fact that Spam is processed, super processed, ultra processed. But like for me, it's like to have it once in a while is fine. And the most important thing is the story that it carries. That's for me. Like, and I was like, there was a history between the American army and the Koreans.
There are a couple places that do it. But in Korea, like, it would be, like, very, like, oh, this is our whole thing, you know? Like, the places that sell it.
It sounds like a hangover food.
It could be a hangover food. It's just lunch, dinner, you know, whenever you want. I mean, that's the other thing about Korean people. That we don't have, like, oh, breakfast food or, like, this is lunch food. Like, you eat rice and side dishes and soup for breakfast. You eat rice and side dishes and soup for lunch. I mean, you can eat whatever you want. There's no real, like, sometimes people will ask me, like, oh, what do Korean people eat for breakfast? We eat what we always eat, you know, rice and side dishes and some kind of soup. So it could be an any time kind of food. Going to the soup thing, there are so many good soups in Korea, and Korean people love soup, and we love our soup boiling hot. So if you go to Korea and you go to a legit soup place, your soup's coming out boiling, first of all, and it's coming out in a stone bowl. So it does not get cold. And I do think there is like a lack of good soup, like Korean soup. I think we get a little bit of like beef bone soup. We do have a couple places in the area. There's one in Annandale that does that. And a couple like maybe like fish stews. But then otherwise, you know, I think we're sleeping on Korean soup.
Oh yeah. And I think there's a lot of goodness in soups.
Yeah.
I grew up with soups as well. And actually, I, for whatever reason, rejected soups growing up. Like my grandma would always say like, you're an Asian person, you need to drink soup. And I was like, I don't get it. Like we have water and then we have soup. And it's always been like rice, whatever meal you have, you had soups. And it can be as simple as a vegetarian one with like daikon and some red dates and like some goji berries, whatever, right? Or it can be something really serious which has a lot of bones in it. I love chicken feet. It gives you a lot of collagen. But yeah, my point is saying that is like growing up, I really did not like it. I was forced to drink it. But like we were always told like it would give you, I think the Chinese word is bo. They always say like bo is like vitality. Which really, when I came to America, when I started living in cold countries, I always have soups now or gravies now because it really does sustain me, right? But let's talk about this boiling hot pot of soup because that is true. Like when I went to Korea, that's one thing that I noticed. So like tips to people, do not touch that.
It's literally like bubbling.
And for whatever reason, you guys like to use metal spoons.
Yeah, yeah.
How do you drink that hot thing?
I grew up with it.
You're
If
used to it?
yeah, if
Oh my
my
God.
soup's not like boiling hot, then I'm like, oh, the soup is too cold. Actually, in Korea, there's a saying where you fight fire with fire. So Korean people will, on the hottest day of the year, on the hottest days of the year, you actually eat chicken soup, and it's hot. And they say, and there's like ginseng in it, so very like warm foods.
Yeah.
And they say you have to fight the heat with more heat. So that's actually a traditional thing. Like they have these days that are considered like, oh, this is gonna be like, it's like peak summer, and they're like,
Right.
okay, today you have to eat chicken soup.
And are the Korean people like that too? In personality?
Oh,
Do you fight fire with fire?
a little bit, I think.
Right? I think there are a lot of things that we need to not redefine, but to reintroduce and to expand what the definition of Korean food is or Asian food is. And did you grow up with a perception of Korean food being a certain type of food? Like, was it highly regarded, lowly regarded? Was it absent altogether? Like Malaysian food is still absent.
Yeah, I think for me, my parents kind of, raised us on Korean food. So I, it was to the point where kind of Korean people here would look at me and go, I thought you were born here. Like, why don't you like pizza and hamburgers and stuff like that? I'm like, oh, I want Korean food. Like, I will kill Korean food, And my dad is kind of like a big foodie too. Like, he loves trying new foods, and he loves food as well. So growing up, we always just had such an, like wide variety of Korean food and an abundance of Korean food. It was normal that we had Korean food. And I think it was just more of less like, oh, how I would regard it, but it was just, like you said, it's like just unknown. And then once Korean food started popping up, in mainstream culture and in grocery stores and in restaurants, it was kind of a shock to me.
Right.
Because I would go to like Whole Foods and they'd have like, oh, Korean inspired like wings or like kimchi salad. And I was like, what? Like in Whole Foods? Where am I? Not H Mart. So I think it was just more of that than, oh, like I think one food is better than the other.
Yeah. Before we go further into that, and I know there's a point where I want to go into where I feel that the Koreans hit the nail on the head with how they spread food culture. But before that, let's try this. Oh, it's sambal oelek, but it's made in Vietnam.
I think I've actually tried this type of sambal.
Okay.
Like with like spring rolls and stuff, like summer rolls.
Okay. I don't know. Like, I've never had this. It is so
I think
new
it's a little more like vinegary.
Well, it says pâte de piment frais, so it's Vietnamese because it's French there. It looks like the chili that you have, like in Malaysia, we have this with chicken rice. Let's taste this. So it's like, I think they use fresh chilies, like in sambals that we make. Depends on what sambal, but like sambal tumis, usually we use dried chilies. These are like the fresh chilies, and I feel that fresh chilies have a more greener taste, and it's not too spicy. And I'm gonna just taste it.
Yeah.
So it's like,
That's actually like very mild.
it's not spicy at all to me. Like, you see all the seeds, but it's not really like that spicy, and it's very vinegarish, I would say. So like the one that we have chicken rice is almost the same, except there is the secret is when we do chicken rice, the Hainanese style, you kind of like boil the chicken, and then the broth is made used to make the soup that goes with the chicken, but also the broth is used to make a little bit of the chili paste, so it becomes sweet a little bit, sour. But it's not too acid. It's fine, right? Okay, let's try this one, which is premium.
That one looks kind of scary.
Yeah. First of all, I can't read nothing on it. It just says premium spicy sauce. It's got this like layer of oil, but it smells like it has black beans. Like the ferment. You guys have that also, right? The fermented black beans.
Yeah.
So this is a tip that we have for everyone who's not familiar with all this paste, whenever you get like a chili sauce or a chili paste with oil on top, when you take it off from the bottle, you have to do exactly what Serene did. You have to like go down and like stir it a little bit oil. You'll just be eating oil. It is really dark. I'm sure there's black beans in it.
It's very,
What is it?
it's very Chinese flavor. Like, I don't know. No, just taste it. No, I'm saying like, it's like a, like, you know, like,
It's very Chinesey.
like, it's like a very familiar flavor if you've eaten Chinese food. Like,
It's the black beans. They put black beans in it. It's like almost Szechuan
yeah.
kind of thing. It's got like a mala kind of feeling on your tongue at the end.
A little bit, yeah.
I think they're like, there's like secret ingredients they're not naming.
There's spicy king on here, so.
No, I like it the most that the cover says super lucky. Let's talk about being a young person running an Asian restaurant in America. Is it tough?
You know.
Are you okay? Are you okay?
I don't know, am I? I think, you know, there are ups and downs, as I'm sure with, you know, any restaurant, any culture. It is sometimes a little bit, you know, disheartening at times, you know, when people come in who don't really know about, you know, Korean culture, Asian culture, and they're just kind of like, oh, I've had people come here with their friends and they're like, oh, I'm not gonna eat, like, it's not really my kind of food. It's like, but you don't even know, you didn't even try it.
Yeah.
And they'll just sit there and they'll like watch their friends eat. Or I've had, you know, people come into Shiru like, oh, do you guys just do like rice and broccoli? I'm like, what is that? What do you mean? No, we don't do that.
So Shiri is more like focusing on traditional
Yeah.
Korean food.
So yeah, and we do like, it's traditional. It's a blend because we also do like Korean hot dogs, like Korean
Right.
corn dogs, which is like totally not traditional, obviously, but it's different, and you know, it's, you know, from Korea. But yeah, like people, and I honestly think that most Korean food is kind of really palatable for like most people because, like I said, there's no like strong like herbs, there's no strong like aromatics. It's like bulgogi is sweet and salty, like what's not to like, you know, for example. So it is kind of sometimes, but you know, you just have to be patient. And
What's the worst experience you had with this? Has anyone come into your restaurant and say like, is it like Chinese food?
oh, all the time. And I mean, like, or they'll come, like, I think there's kind of like an expectation of like, oh, like, this is a Korean restaurant. So, like, for Shiru, for example, this is a Korean restaurant. So they must have every single type of Korean food I know because, you know, they'll come into Shiru and they'll be like, do you have jjajangmyeon? I'm like, no, because that's not our restaurant. You know, like, jjajangmyeon is a very specific cuisine. It's Korean Chinese cuisine. Like, just because we're Korean doesn't mean we make every single Korean food ever.
Because we have kind of mainstream different types of food. Italian food is this, Korean food is this, and therefore if it's an Italian restaurant, you have to have this. Which I feel is not really fair.
Yeah, it's not. And I think one of the hardest parts is, and it's something that I talk about a lot because I do feel very passionate about it, is that there's this notion that Asian food should be affordable or should be cheap, you know?
Let's talk about that.
And that really gets me because, you know, sometimes people will come here and they'll be like, oh, it's expensive. It's kind of expensive. I'm like, you're paying like $25 for a plate of pasta. And you know, like, and I love pasta. Like, I think I could have been Italian in a previous life because I love pasta. But let's be real. Like, as people who cook, we know the number of ingredients that go into making pasta versus like making an Asian dish is so different, right? If anything, I feel like Asian food requires more fresh, you know, vegetables, there's more sauces, there's just like so much more there.
And the time spent.
Right.
It's not like, even like something that is stir fried requires like a broth or an element that has been made. And like, you don't just discount soy sauce because soy sauce takes, proper soy sauce is actually a fermentation, takes years, right? Like, we always talk about in Malaysia, a bowl of laksa. people think that it's really cheap because we have it all the time in Malaysia, and it's because it's very common. We have it as street food, we have it as elevated food, whatever it is. But they go like, I just talked to the winner of MasterChef UK the other day, and she's Malaysian and she lives in UK, and she goes like, if you want to pay like aglio olio,
Yeah.
which is just olive oil,
Yeah.
and like the process of doing aglio olio is really quick
Right.
versus a bowl of laksa. And the ingredients that goes to the broth of laksa, it's like so many more. It takes much longer time. Why can't it be at least the same price? You know? But it's the same with Korean food?
Yeah, I mean,
Oh.
that's like such a big part of feedback that we've got when we opened this was like, oh, it's expensive. And I'm like, there's like 20 different like fresh vegetables. And also, I mean, everything's gotten expensive now, right? I mean, in America, like everything. And I think to a certain point, we Asian people, we do it to ourselves because some of the biggest people who will say that are Asian people. They're, they just kind of have this, I guess maybe because they're like, oh, I can make this at home, or like it's something I grew up with. It's not like special, that they think it shouldn't be, they think it should be cheap and affordable. Yeah. Whereas like, like people will go to a nice steakhouse or a nice Italian restaurant, don't even blink spending like 50-60 per person. You know what I mean? Like, and I think.
And I'm really in shock hearing you say that, because I never had this perception of Korean food being cheaper. If anything, in Asia, we always say, in the wise words of Ellie Wong, so she's Vietnamese, right? And Vietnam and Malaysia, we're in Southeast Asia, we call us the jungle Asians. So Koreans, Chinese, Japanese, we always regard like they're the classy Asians. So like, I always think that Korean food should be classy, like it should be more expensive. But you guys also have that problem.
Yeah.
So what is the direction now for you and the group of restaurants, and what's going to happen with Sorimmara, and what's going to happen with Shiru? And
I think we're always looking to, bring new things, bring new concepts. I mean, kind of going back, like I said, my dad, who's kind of like head of the operation, he's a big ideas man. He's always like, oh, like, what about this? What about that? And he wants to kind of do a bunch of different things, which probably is a big part of our success. Like, he's brought over a lot of brands from Korea. So I think we're always looking to do more. And like I said, I do feel very strongly about introducing Korean foods that aren't Korean barbecue, that aren't tteokbokki and kimbap, which they're great. I love that food, but I do feel like there's so much more of a spectrum when it comes to Korean food, and I do feel like we can bring more. We can, I think, kind of like going back, like you said, like, for example, Japanese food. There's, I feel like even in America, there's like a very big range of Japanese food that people here are familiar with. And there's like sushi, there's ramen, there's udon, there's katsu, and there's like a big range there, and I do think like for Korean food, it's become more well known now, and it's definitely like more people are aware of Korean food and Korean culture. But I think this is just the beginning, and there's more we have to do going forward, and more things we can introduce to people. So always just looking for new ideas. It is kind of a difficult time right now, just I think for everybody, but gotta keep trying, right? And everyone always needs to eat, right?
what is your one advice to people who have never tried Sorimmara or Shiru or just Korean food?
I would say ask a Korean person. Ask a Korean person what, but also don't be afraid to ask, the people there, like wherever you're going, even if it's not us or, like I think most of the time, like people who are serving the food, people who are selling the food will be more than happy to explain it and be like, oh, you should try this or you should try that. Like I've been to Korean restaurants with my boyfriend who's not Korean, and they'll come over and be like, oh, you're supposed to like assemble it like this and like tell him. So I do think just don't be afraid to ask. I think don't try to figure it out on your own, and just ask, and we're more than happy to explain to you and kind of suggest to you what we think you would like.
And okay, for those people who are listening who want to find out more about your group of restaurants, where can they?
So we are on Instagram, Sorimmara Annandale location, we are on Instagram as Sorimmara VA. Shiru and Chuk Story for all three of our locations. We have one in Annandale and Centerville, which is in Virginia, and then Ellicott City, Maryland. And then we also have a not restaurant, but a Korean goods store where we import kind of ingredients and goods from Korea called Tanuri. And you can find that on Instagram as well at Tanuri Mall, also in Annandale. So, yeah.
Well, thank you so much for opening the doors of Sorimmara to us and like giving a taste of what it is like growing up in a household that run Korean restaurants. I wish the same as you with everyone being more adventurous. And that's why I would say thank you to you for being here and all the people who are listening. I would always invite you guys to keep your plates adventurous and your hearts open. My name is Abang Brian.
Terima kasih and thank you for joining us on another culinary journey. Just by tuning in, you're already helping us to keep our stories, our flavors, and our heritage alive. But the reality is, our culture is fast disappearing. And when we lose it, we lose a part of who we are. So if this episode resonated with you, I have just one small favor to ask. Hit that subscribe button and share this show. Talk about it with your friends, your family, or anyone who loves food, culture, and all the stories that bring us together. Let's keep these traditions alive, not just in history, but in our kitchens, our conversations, and our hearts. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Hungry Immigrant and my personal account at Abang Brian for behind-the-scene moments and extra bites from each episode. I'm Abang Brian, reminding you to always keep your plates adventurous and your hearts open.